Because tension is one of the main problems which people find, stress, and this meditation is a way of dealing with that tension and stress of daily life. You've already been trying some meditation which calms the mind down. Calming the mind down is a way of letting go of the problems of life. I gave a sim in the very first lesson here of the two suitcases. I've been emphasizing this because it's an important simile of letting go of past and future. For those who didn't hear that simile, the first lesson, person is carrying two suitcases, one in the left hand, one in the right hand, both are very heavy. One is full with the past, the other one is full with the future. Because we carry them around all the time, we feel stress, tiredness. To overcome that stress, we put those two suitcases down for a short time, so we can take them up again afterwards. Putting them down is letting go of the business, the problems, the worries of life, so that we do not feel that tiredness which we call stress, tension in our life. Once one understands a way of letting go of the suitcases, one understands a way of meditation. One is putting down life, one is leaving it alone, one is just dropping it for a moment, so one can rest. Hopefully you've all managed to have some degree of experience in meditation, that sometimes when you do this exercise, I've been teaching here, of sitting down quietly, just comforting the body, and then starting to watch the breath go in and go out, go in and go out. You should notice that many of the concerns which you carry around with you every moment of the day do tend to disappear. They do tend to go away from you. The mind does start to rest and relax. Once one can develop this ability to let go of problems, you can find that it's a very useful ability which you can employ in many occasions of your life. One of the experiences which made me very interested in this thing called meditation was when I used this very same technique many years ago when I was doing the final examinations for a degree in an English university. In those days, to get your degree, the final examinations, one had to sit a 3-hour exam in the morning, a 3-hour exam in the afternoon, 1 hour for lunch, for 6 days solid, one after the other. And it was in theoretical physics. And I was told by all my friends, my relations, by the whole university, that this was extremely important, you have to pass. If you fail, that your whole career has been wasted. 3 years at university had come to naught if you failed. The pressure was on, it was very stressful. And 3 hours of doing sums, which was what theoretical physics was like, when you finished that first 3-hour exam in the morning, I remember going back to my room, literally shaking with a nervous energy, tired and very worried about what I'd just done, whether I'd answered the questions correctly, and also worried about what the questions would be in the afternoon. Fortunately, I had an edge over my fellow students because I learned how to meditate. And instead of going back to my room and having lunch, I went back to my room and sat in meditation. I never had anything to eat at lunchtime. The first thing one noticed when one started just watching the breath was that the shaking in the body disappeared. When I started laying down those suitcases, for me the suitcase in the left hand was the exam in the morning. Was that the right answer? Should I have said something else? The suitcase in the other hand was the exam in front of me in the afternoon. Have I read enough? Have I revised enough? I let go of both of those suitcases. And I just dwelt in the present moment, just sitting in the room, as if there was no exams before me, no exams past. Sitting like that for half an hour, one noticed the inner nervousness disappeared, and then the tiredness disappeared. To realize that for 3 hours I'd just been using my brain in top gear to try and get through this very important exam. After half an hour, the mind was so peaceful and quiet that when I emerged from the meditation after half an hour, I was so clear and rested that it was as if it was the first examination of the year. And when I went into that examination room in the afternoon, I was even smiling, which really upset my friends. But to me, I was so at peace. The nervousness had gone, and in its place was energy and clarity. This energy and clarity is what we need in life if we wish to pass an exam, or if we wish to do our roles and duties in life. And I did very well in those examinations, simply because that my mind was clear, rested and energetic. It was worth much more than lunch. Because at any examination one has to perform, and part of performing is recording all the information. It was in there somewhere. It's just how to get it out, and how to arrange it logically, and how to present it clearly. These are all things which require a very precise and calm but energetic mind. Calm but energetic is what happens in this meditation. So this was one of my first experiences which showed that this meditation is not just used for religious purposes, although it can be, it's very powerful as such, but it's also used in every aspect of life. Not only does it rest the mind and the body, but it also gives the mind and body energy, and this marvelous thing we call clarity. Why is it that we can never really see the solution to our problems? A lot of the time is because, as the English phrase says, we think about something. That word about, we think around it, around and around, but we never go to the center. To go to the center you need a very calm mind, a very peaceful mind, and then you see. It's like a simile, which, a very common simile of a person lost in a jungle or in a forest. When you don't know your way, what would you do? What one does in a forest or in a jungle is one finds a very tall tree, or even better, a hill or a tower, and one climbs that tower until one gets above the tree line. When you're above the tree line, you can see great distances. You can see the paths and the villages in the distance. You can see the rivers. In short, you can get your directions. It's very difficult to get your directions when you're right in the center of the forest, with trees around you and trees above you. So often life is like that, being in a jungle. Problems to the left and problems to the right, and problems above you as well. How on earth can one find one's way? How on earth can one find what one should be doing? By making the mind peaceful and climbing that inner tower, so you get a further view above and beyond problems. That's why this path of meditation has always been a path which gives an inner wisdom, which can be not just things deeply profound, but just common sense on how you should be acting or dealing with the problems you face from day to day in life. So often if we have a problem and we keep thinking about it and worrying about it, that's the worst way of solving it. Leave it alone, then later the answer comes to you. I know a person who is a lawyer in England. This lawyer, very busy job. Lawyers get paid a lot, but they also do work a lot. And this lawyer has solved the problem of the difficulties of his profession. In his office he had a cupboard. It was full of papers and books and stuff. He told his secretary to clear out every last piece of paper out of this very small cupboard. And every lunchtime he gets his secretary to lock him in there for half an hour, where he meditates. Anyone phones, the boss is in the cupboard meditating. And the secretary agrees to do this, and the lawyer realizes it's well worth doing. Why? Because half an hour spent meditating in the middle of the day for this very busy man means that in the afternoon he's rested, his mind is clear, and he has energy to do the job which he has to do. Half an hour spent resting is soon made up in being more careful, more precise, not making so many mistakes. One meditation monk, a Vietnamese monk, once said the phrase, "There's not much time, therefore we must go slowly." Which any of you who have very busy jobs, high pressure jobs, would do well to put on a piece of paper on a card and stick above your desk. There's not much time, therefore we must go slowly. What is the meaning of that? If you haven't got much time, you can't afford to make mistakes. So much of life is spent because of the mistakes one made, mending them, fixing them, and healing the problems, the personality conflicts and stuff which come up because we rush too fast. If you've got plenty of time, you can afford to make those problems because you've got time to solve them. If you haven't got much time, you have to go slowly and very carefully. So this is what we mean by bringing meditation into our daily life. Not just getting a cupboard and cleaning it out, but having this attitude of meditation which we bring in to our daily life. We have times to stop and also times to go slowly and go carefully. Sometimes we think if we have many things to do, we have to rush through them. That is usually not the fastest way. The fastest way often is to go slowly but carefully and just don't waste any time. Once a person realizes this, they start to understand this, not so much the technique of meditation, but the attitude of meditation. The attitude of meditation is this sustained carefulness on what you're doing. To be able to succeed at watching the breath from moment to moment over 15 minutes, you have to be very careful. You have to develop the carefulness of, say, a person walking over a tightrope. Or just one lapse of attention and you're gone. Or like a surgeon performing an operation. Just one moment of the mind wandering off and you snip something else instead of what you're trying to cut off. This is one of the problems. But surgeons can manage to achieve this constant awareness and carefulness. And it means that what they do is done well. And the more mindfulness and carefulness which they have, the more delicate the operations they can perform, and the more successful they become in their quest for healing sick human beings. So this attitude of meditation is a careful mindfulness, the attention to what you're doing. The attention to what we're doing is most important. Quite often in life we're always somewhere else. Not paying attention to what we're doing, not giving importance to what we're doing. If you want to succeed in meditation, you have to give complete importance to the breath, to the moment. All the other things which you have to do later, all the other things you've done before are not important anymore. It brings me to the story of the emperor's 3 questions. Once upon a time there was an emperor who, as well as being a very successful ruler of this vast tract of territory, also was interested in the philosophical truths and would often wonder about the meaning of things. And throughout his life he sifted his contemplations and reflections into 3 big questions, understanding that if he knew the answer to these 3 questions, then he would understand all things. The 3 questions were this: what is the most important time? Who is the most important person? And what's the most important thing to do? He asked all the priests and religious people in his realm, and he didn't get a straight answer from any one of them. He asked his politicians and ministers and philosophers and people in the universities. Again, he wasn't satisfied with their answers. After a long time, he found the answers from a hermit who lived up in the mountains. This actually was not from a Buddhist story, but from a story by Tolstoy, which fits into what I'm going to be saying this afternoon. What do you think those answers were? What is the most important time? Now, that's the easy one. The hard one. Who is the most important person? Anyone say yourself? No. I love this. Who is the most important person? It's not yourself. Mr. Keating? God? No. Ah, you've read this one before. Yes, the most important person in the story was the one you're with. That's a very profound part of the story. The most important person is the one you're with. This attitude of meditation is to be in the present, which means being with who you're with. You know, sometimes in life we might be with, like our child, our son or our daughter. We're too busy, so we don't take them seriously. Sometimes they're very small, insignificant people, especially the people we live with, our husband and a wife. Because they're always there, they're not important. We take them for granted. Have you ever been with the person you live with and felt that they're not listening to you? Your boss at work, your friend, and you're not being taken seriously, you're not being given importance. What they're saying to you, or what you're saying to them, is not really going in. If you understand this, you know what I mean by how important it is that the one you're with is the most important person. What happens when you aren't with anyone? Who's the most important person then? Yourself, because you are with you then. So the most important person is the one you're with. If no one else is there, it's you. What's the most important thing to do? I shouldn't really go on too long here. The most important thing to do in this answer, this riddle, was to care. Because caring means two things, not just being kind, but being careful, being mindful, listening carefully and caringly, doing carefully and caringly. This is the attitude of meditation. This is what you're training to do when you watch the breath. You're taking something which is always there, which has been with you from the time you were born, the breath, but because it's always been there, you've never given it any importance. You've taken it for granted. Just another breath. There'll be another time to watch the breath. There are more important things to do, more important things to think of. You don't give it importance. When you learn to give something as simple and as present as the breath importance, when all these other wandering things which come up into the mind and take you away are disregarded because you choose to watch your breath, you'll find you will be able, when a little child, your son or your daughter, comes to see you and they want to play and do something you think is completely silly and stupid and you haven't got time for it, you can push all that aside and be with that person. You can give them time just as you can give the breath time. You have the power to do so. And you can do so with care. You care enough to watch the breath, and you carefully do it. You care enough for yourself to give yourself this rest and the time. And you do so carefully, so you actually do rest. You do achieve what you aim and set out for. So this is an attitude of meditation, which comes to be one's attitude towards life. And lovely things start to happen when you start to develop this attitude of the one you're with is the most important now. If you want to say, I love you, if I want to say thank you, do it now. Tomorrow it might be too late. And you're caring and careful. And that brings up a story of another person I knew who, we have these weekend meditation retreats every so often, where we spend the whole weekend in silence, doing a lot of meditation. And this retreat, when this retreat was about to be scheduled, this man wanted to come to that retreat. But the retreats were on a weekend, Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday. And so he had to ask his wife, "Dear, can I go on the meditation retreat which is coming in a couple of weekends' time?" And his wife said, "What do you mean? The weekend is when we do the shopping, when you've got to mow the lawn, we've got to look after the kids, you've got to wash the car. There's so many things to do on a weekend. What do you mean you're going to go and cop out of a weekend's work just to go and do some silly meditation? Of course you can't go." So he didn't. The next time a meditation retreat came up, he asked again, "May I go on a meditation retreat? Leave me with the kids, the washing up, the shopping, the car and everything else." Of course you can't. But he persisted. And once when a meditation retreat was going to come up and he said, "Can I go on a meditation retreat?" And he said, "Well, leave me." He said, "Okay, you go and leave me with the washing up and the kids and the car." And he did. But what happened was when he came back from the meditation retreat, because of these attitudes of mind he was developing, this caring, the one you're with being the most important, being very sensitive, when he came back, he was such a wonderful husband to be around. So sensitive and caring. And it's a true story. When the next meditation retreat came up, he didn't even need to ask. She gave him the money and sent him off. Because she realized the results. It was in her interest. It was not a different man, but a man with a much better attitude, who didn't take her for granted so much, didn't take the kids for granted, was more sensitive and helpful. What are some of the biggest problems in relationships? Why do they go wrong? What do people always say? Because breakdown of communication. The other person doesn't understand me. They're not listening. Or they may be listening, but they're not hearing. Why does that happen? Because the attitude is all wrong. Taking for granted, not listening to the other person, not giving them importance, not being sensitive, not being with that person. Being with the person is as difficult as being with a breath. You're with someone and what you do, you wander off somewhere else. There's more important things. Take your attention away from your husband, your wife, or the person you're with, and you end up not spending any time with them. Just like when you start to watch your breath and you wander off onto other things, where are you going tonight, all these other important things. This is a training of the mind to exert that choice to stay with what's right there in front of your nose, the breath going in and going out. So these become the attitudes which we develop in this meditation. And these are attitudes which actually come up naturally as a result of doing meditation. As one trains oneself to stay in the moment, one learns that now is the most important time. As one trains oneself to stay with the breath as it goes in and goes out, one trains oneself to stay with the husband, the wife, the child who you are with. And even though that what they may be saying may not be what you like, even though the breath may be uncomfortable, you stay with it. Even though you think it may be insignificant and paltry and the more important things in the world, you stay with them. You don't take these things so much for granted. When you stay with these things, you see and hear and feel things which would have passed over otherwise. You really get to know this person just as you get to know the breath. And there's many things in that person you never expected you might find, which you do find. Just like in this breath, there's many parts of this breath which you never thought were there. The great beauty, the great joy, the great bliss of a peaceful mind, right there in just a breath going in and going out, which you never thought you'd find. Some people think that the meditation on the breath might be boring, just like people might think their husband, their wife might be boring. or their children. Look deeper and deeper, and it's amazing what you will find in there. These are attitudes and techniques which we build up in this meditation. They build up gradually as we do the practice, as we do the training. And remember what this training is? The training is watching the breath, keeping the attention there. And I better not speak for too long, so I wanted to do a 15-minute meditation now. And after the meditation, I'm going to give you another exercise for meditation, which is a walking meditation. But first of all, we're going to be doing some more sitting meditation. So if you would get yourselves comfortable, if you are getting a bit stiff because you've been sitting down for over half an hour, stand up and jump up and down. Don't make too much of a noise. Don't injure yourself. And in a moment or two, we shall start the meditation. Okay? So here we go. Sitting down, close your eyes. You should know about the way to sit by now, the posture of meditation. When you close your eyes, it's a very good time to check that posture once more. Make sure you're sitting in a proper position. Not by looking, but by feeling. You can adjust the body slightly at the beginning, because this is your last opportunity to adjust the body. In a moment or two, I'm going to say, leave the body aside, don't even move it. Bring the awareness into the present moment. Remember, this is the most important time, now. In truth, it's the only time you have. So don't throw it away for something else. How do you feel now? What is the content of your consciousness right now? Know what I mean by the experience and the commentary. The experience is what actually is happening now. The commentary is what you say about it. Leave aside the commentary and go for pure experience, what you cannot put into words. And don't take this moment for granted. This is the moment you're with, the most important thing in the world. And care enough to give yourself this moment. And as you stay with this moment, you get to learn more about it. And start to turn that attention onto the breath, which is right before you. The experience of breath going in, the experience of breath going out. Now the breath is the most important thing in the world. As important as the tip of the knife for a surgeon doing the operation. As important as the balance of a tightrope walker. As important as being with someone you've taken for granted for so many years. Even though other sounds, other thoughts may scream in the background, I'm important too, listen to me, think about me. Say, no, not now. Now my breath is important. As if your breath is an old friend who served you for many years, but you've never been with and understood. There's no need to talk about the breath, as if you're running a conversation inside as you watch. Stay quiet to yourself and just feel the breath. Feel your body. Just feel the old air expel from your body. As if it's some primeval cycle. And increase the level of care to allow the body just to do the breathing. As if you're soothing the breath, just like you would soothe a child when they're tucked up in bed at night. Breathing in, soothing the breath. Breathing out, soothing the breath. Don't have any goals or ambitions. Don't look to the future, just soothe the breath now. Now is the most important time. This moment you're with is the most important thing. And to care and be careful is the most important thing to do.